I used to believe that love was built on the little things. The good morning kisses, the texts during lunch, the way she'd fall asleep on my chest while we watched reruns of old shows. Until those little things stopped happening and started breaking me instead. Her name is Emily, my wife of 3 years, the woman who once burned with passion in every glance, every touch, every word, but over the last 8 months she grew colder, more distant, always tired, always busy, avoiding my touch with soft excuses that gradually turned into walls, and I, like a fool, tried to break them down gently. Flowers on her desk at work, surprise date nights, soft whispers in the dark that went unanswered. And while I still craved her closeness, she always turned her back to me at night, blaming stress, work pressure, or simply not being in the mood, and I told myself it would pass, that maybe life had drained her and I needed to just wait. But what I didn't know was that while I was trying to keep the fire alive, someone else had already lit a match in the shadows, and it all started with a stupid forgotten charger. She had taken my car that Friday morning because hers was acting up, and when I got in hers later to retrieve my phone charger, I noticed a distinct scent. Not her usual lavender or vanilla perfume, but a mix of musk and something heady, male strong. And then I reached under the passenger seat and pulled out a black lace lingerie set. Something she hadn't worn for me in almost a year, something delicate and expensive, and worst of all, the tags were still attached, except the bra was undone, as if recently taken off in a hurry, and my stomach dropped into a cold pit of dread as I sat in her driver's seat with her betrayal balled up in my hand, trying to breathe, trying not to scream, and 1,000 images rushed through my head. Her late-night meetings, her weekend girls' trips where she'd come back glowing, the hotel charge on our credit card she said was a work retreat, and now I knew, no, I felt, it had never been about work. She had simply found someone else to give her the attention, the touch, the passion I'd been begging for, and for days I said nothing, not because I was weak, but because I needed more than suspicion. I needed truth like a blade in my hands, and so I followed her the next weekend when she said she was going shopping with her sister, watched her park 3 blocks from a downtown hotel, get out of the car in jeans and a hoodie, then emerge 15 minutes later from the hotel lobby in a red dress and heels, her hair down, lipstick on, hand in hand with a tall man in a dark shirt who leaned down and kissed her neck while she laughed like I hadn't heard in years. And I stayed frozen in my own car, breath fogging the windshield as I watched her walk into a restaurant I had once proposed to her in, and I remembered the way she'd cried that night, holding my face and saying yes over and over, and now she sat at the same table, feeding wine and smiles to a stranger while my world crumbled outside that window, and still I said nothing, because revenge, real revenge, is best served with silence and precision, and that night I waited until she came home hours later, tiptoeing like a guilty child, slipping into bed without touching me, her hair still smelling of another man's cologne, and I turned over, kissed her forehead gently and whispered, "I love you," knowing it would be the last time I ever meant it. And in the weeks that followed I became a ghost in my own home, documenting, preparing, finding his name Tyler, and his social media, tracking their meetups, even once seeing them enter a gym together and then leaving an hour later, hair messy, faces flushed, her hand clutching his arm like he was her anchor. And I remembered when she used to hold me that way after making love, sweaty and giggling, whispering about our future and children and growing old together. And now, even those memories felt poisoned. I remembered the time we slow danced barefoot in our tiny apartment, when we couldn't afford real furniture but had love in every corner, how she'd write me notes in the mirror after her shower, "You make me feel safe." And I wondered if she ever wrote that for him now. I recalled our honeymoon in Bali, when she pulled me into the ocean at night just to kiss me under the stars, saying, "You're my home." And now I felt homeless in her presence. I watched as she drifted around the house like a stranger, still cooking dinner, still smiling politely, but never looking me in the eyes for more than a second, and I realized how well she'd learned to lie. Not just to me but to herself. She wasn't sorry because she didn't know I knew, and that illusion gave me time to copy texts from her phone back up into a hidden folder, to screenshot messages on her smartwatch, the ones she forgot would still sync. "Last night was amazing. I can't wait to feel you again. He barely touches me anymore." Those words were knives, each deeper than the last, and still I said nothing, not until the anniversary dinner, the same restaurant we celebrated every year without fail, except this time she walked in wearing that red dress, the one she wore to meet Tyler, and that was all the confirmation I needed that she was no longer pretending for my sake. She had chosen to humiliate me in silence, and so I played my part perfectly, ordering her favorite wine, making her laugh, feeding her bites of dessert, and just when she reached for my hand across the table, Eyes soft with what might have been guilt or maybe manipulation, I gave her the envelope with everything, photos, screenshots, receipts, and the note that simply read, "You stopped sleeping with me months ago, but I found your lingerie in his car. I hope he's worth everything you're about to lose." And I stood up slowly without drama, letting the silence scream louder than I ever could, her mouth open, eyes wide, hands trembling, trying to speak but choking on her own betrayal, and I walked out into the night without looking back. And in the days that followed, she blew up my phone, calls, texts, begging to explain, saying it meant nothing, that she was lost, confused, that it was just sex. But I didn't reply, didn't speak, because closure wasn't something I owed her anymore. And when she showed up crying at my office, holding that lingerie in a plastic bag like a damn trophy of her guilt, asking to talk, to start fresh, I told security to remove her. And that night I slept for the first time in months without waking in a cold sweat. I filed for divorce, sent her the papers with a single sentence. "You made your choice." And when she tried to stall or fight for assets, I dropped the bomb. Sent the same package to her boss, who happened to be a conservative family man whose company had a strict non-fraternization policy. And within a week she was jobless, ashamed, and blocked from my life, and I didn't do it out of spite. I did it for justice, because love without loyalty is nothing, and lies deserve to rot under sunlight. Months passed and I healed, slowly, painfully, with the help of therapy, new routines, reconnecting with old friends who told me they had always suspected something but didn't want to interfere. And eventually, I met someone else, her name's Rachel, and she didn't rush into my life but walked in gently, listened when I shared, held me without asking me to forget, and one day when she looked at me and said, "You deserve peace," I knew I had found a new kind of love, one that didn't